later days more, but they're so intrinsic. He imbibed devotional service from young, and he had the great fortune when he was 7 years old that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came there on his pilgrimage. And because it was the rainy season, Venkata requested him very sincerely to please come and stay with him. Because in India, when it rains and it's all muddy, the sannyasis would often go to one place for 4 months instead of travelling, and then they were busy with their travel. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very happy. And of course, when they went there, when he brought him home to his home, he bathed his feet. And the first person who got that water was 7-year-old Gopala Bhatta. And he was just crying in ecstasy. And it's described that that meeting of Gopala Bhatta Gosvami and Lord Chaitanya, because Gopala Bhatta Gosvami is the Lord's Manjari, and because the Lord was in the mood of Radharani, it was like the two of them meeting in that they had that mood of complete ecstasy when they met, even though he was in this body of a 7-year-old boy. So he was very happy having Lord Chaitanya stay there, and he was able to physically serve the Lord. He would massage his feet, he would take his plates, take Mahaprasad from Lord Chaitanya's plate, and he would be around at all times, just try to serve Lord Chaitanya, and he derived so much pleasure from that. And Lord Chaitanya actually had a servant there called Govinda that he travelled with, who allowed Gopala Bhatta to perform so many services. But that servant, Govinda, would talk to Gopala Bhatta, and because he's a 7-year-old body, he would tell him pastimes about the Lord in Navadvip when he was small. And he used to tell him, "Oh, he's a sannyasi now. He was so naughty. You can't believe he would go to Lake Nadia, he would go to the Ganges, and he would dive underwater when the Brahmins were taking bath, and he'd pull off their dhotis so then they couldn't come out of the water. He'd send someone to fetch a dhoti, and he'd pull the sages' beards, he'd jump on their backs and beat them when they were meditating. He was so naughty. He would pretend he was going to school, he would put ink on his body that he'd been to school, but actually he was off at the Ganges performing naughty pastimes. So Gopala Bhatta was so intrigued, and he sort of had this growing feeling like, how come the Lord's put me here now? I got born in the wrong place. I got born at the wrong time. I should have been born in Navadvip, and I should have been born so I could be a friend to Lord Chaitanya in his childhood. So this was really like a strong feeling for him, and he really wanted to see that beautiful blackish hair, of course, because Lord Chaitanya, by the time when he took sannyas, of course, he had a shaved head. So that he kept this in his heart, that he wished these things. So after the 4 months time, of course, Gopala Bhatta and even the whole family, they couldn't bear that Lord Chaitanya was going to leave. But Gopala Bhatta was very stricken, that the Lord was going to leave, go away. So he went to sleep one day feeling this remorse, and he had a dream, and in that dream he was transported actually into that Navadvip Leela. He actually was there, and he was watching Lord Chaitanya performing all these wonderful pastimes. So it was so ecstatic for him. He was actually trembling with ecstasy as he lay there asleep. And then he saw Lord Chaitanya afterwards, when he'd grown up a little, and he was having Nam Sankirtan, and Lord Nityananda was there, Sri Advaita, Srivas Thakur. He saw all that, and he was so ecstatic. And then Sri Advaita Prabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu, they both came up to Gopala Bhatta, and they took his ear, and they started speaking confidentially in his ears. And at that time he woke up, and he so distraught and tried to go back to sleep. You know how you do sometimes when you have a good dream. But he couldn't. So then he ran to Lord Chaitanya to tell him what had happened. And as he came closer to Lord Chaitanya, he saw, oh, he's not there. But Lord Krishna was there. And he was playing a flute. And he had his head on the side, and he was glancing around, and there were deer there. The deer were shedding tears. The peacocks were dancing. The birds were ecstatic. He actually got transported to Vrindavan. So he was like, did a double take. And again, he looked. And then he saw that Krishna had become Nimaya Nadia with the long hair. And again, he was so ecstatic, he fell down crying like a rod at the Lord's lotus feet. And then when he got up, he saw, oh, he's a sannyasi again. So he had this wonderful vision. He saw Vrindavan, he saw Nagari. So when he came to from that, I don't know where I've written this, but Lord Chaitanya actually spoke to him, and he told him. Lord Chaitanya said to him, yes, this is what you've wanted to see, because Lord Chaitanya knew all this time that he'd been longing to see these things. And he said, I know you wanted to see this form, so I have revealed it to you. Indeed, I am Krishna, and I have come in the mood of Radharani. But till now, I have not revealed this to the world, so you must keep it a secret. I am here to taste Radha Bhava. And then he embraced him. And Lord Chaitanya was crying tears, and so they were both crying. And then he said, I expect miracles from you in the future. You will go to Vrindavan, and you will perform activities and services which I would like to perform. But because I will be in Jagannath Puri, you must do it. You will assist Rupa and Sanatana in their writing great literatures, and you will have many disciples. You will teach Vedic literatures. I will empower you. So Gopala Bhatta, of course, begged, please take me with you now. And he instructed him, no, I want you to stay here. Your mother and father are pure devotees. I want you to take care of them. When they leave, then you come to Vrindavan. So can we just imagine that you've had that as a child? That was the dream and the vision and the instruction that fueled Gopala Bhatta Goswami for his whole life. So he indeed took care of his parents, and then when he's in his they both left together. They were such great Vaishnavas. Before they left, they said, we have one instruction for you. Go to serve Lord Chaitanya. And then they left at the same time, and they were chanting Lord Chaitanya's names. Because I forgot to say that Lord Chaitanya had converted them. They were Lakshmi, they were worshippers of Lakshmi, Narayan. And he kind of had talks with them, which his uncles and which Gopala Bhatta was privy to. They were all privy to these talks. And Lord Chaitanya said to him, well, how come your Lakshmi left her Lord, went to Vrindavan, performed austerities to be with Krishna in a conjugal way as husband, but was not given entrance into the Rasa Leela. So, Venkata Bhatta would defend, Narayan is also Krishna, but you see their consciousness is Narayan is supreme and Krishna is one of the incarnations. So he was saying, it doesn't matter because, it's all the same Lord. She can want to go to Krishna. But Lord Chaitanya said, but she went and she performed severe austerities. Why was she not allowed to go into that Leela? Anyway, he explained to Venkata Bhatta, with Gopala Bhatta very carefully listening, that Krishna's rasa is the supreme, and that the gopis love, that not that Aishvarya or is pure, simple love. When they slap Krishna, or the cowherd boys fight with Krishna, Mother Yasoda chastises Krishna. But their mood of not taking Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead, but as their beloved Krishna, is the highest. So that they all moved to that consciousness. So as they left their bodies, the mother and father chanted the names of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he went to Vrindavan, and there was a running commentary between Sanatana and Rupa in Vrindavan. They would write to Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya would write letters to them. And he did inform them of Gopala Bhatta and tell them that he was coming. So when he did come to Vrindavan, there was a very ecstatic meeting, and they became very wonderfully close brothers. But before he actually went there, he did study Gopala Bhatta under his very scholarly uncle Govardhana Saraswati. So he became very expert in poetry, rhetoric, Sanskrit grammar, studied the scriptures, very knowledgeable, and he was actually quite famous as a great scholar and a great devotee by the time he even reached Vrindavan. That reputation came with him. But Rupa and Sanatana immediately took him in as their younger brother, and it was said that Gopala Bhatta is the younger brother of Rupa and Sanatana. And he did all that Lord Chaitanya requested. He assisted the Sanatana and Rupa in their writings. So I think let's talk about his there's so many wonderful things about him. Okay. So once Lord Chaitanya received word that he had come, he sent some tadia. Tadia means non-different from the Lord. So he sent some cloth, and he sent a wooden little table for worshipping to Gopala Bhatta Gosvami. So Gopala Bhatta Gosvami was so ecstatic. He'd cry every time he looked at this, at either the cloth. He worshipped that cloth all his life. It's still there in the Radharaman temple, and so is the platform. And he would sit on that to do his worship. But he was so respectful because it had come from Lord Chaitanya all his life. He was so grateful to the Lord. They are still being worshipped at Radharaman temple. Sometimes they'll bring them out and you can see. So Lord Chaitanya gave some instructions to Gopala Bhatta. These were instructions. Do not become dependent upon security or adopt a permanent residence. Please spend most of your time assisting Rupa and Sanatana in compiling transcendental literature and thoroughly study this literature as well. So he took all this to heart. So we know that those Goswamis, they moved around Vrindavan. Vrindavan was just a rural place at that time. All the holy places had been sort of lost. Lord Chaitanya himself discovered Radha. So he sent those 6 Goswamis there, and Lokanath Goswami and Bukara, to try to restore those places. So because those Goswamis were sleeping under different trees, and they had desire trees, those trees would let them know the pastimes that happened in that area, and they were sleeping. So they became this is how all those pastime places were discovered, through the desire trees that they were sleeping under. So they didn't become attached to any fixed residence, and plus they had the darshan of these very holy places. So some of the books, maybe. I'll talk about he was really wishing to have darshan of the Lord, and he was always feeling very intense separation after the Lord left. So then the Lord came to him in a dream and said, if you wish to have my darshan, go to Nepal, go to the Gandaki River. So Gopala Bhatta set off that day. He woke up and he set off. And he went to this Gandaki River, and while he was taking bath in his lota, in jumped shalagrams. And he put them back into the water respectfully, and then again he filled his lota. In jumped these shalagrams. Happened again, and the third time in jumped these shalagrams, and he thought, I am meant to worship these shalagrams. So he wrapped them in his cloth and he took them back to Vrindavan. And he sat on that bank every day to do his worship of these shalagrams. And he also had a great longing to worship Krishna's form. And this was a very strong longing, and he had it for a long time. And one rich merchant came one day and he donated him some beautiful cloth and jewellery. And Gopala Bhatta Gosvami said to him, oh, please take it to someone who has a deity form, because how can I use it? But he insisted, no, I want you to have it. So he kept that, and he was thinking, oh, maybe someday. Anyway, Nrsimha Dasi came, and Gopala Bhatta, of course he was fasting all day, but by this time, thinking about that pastime of Lord Nrsimhadev, he was becoming mad, because he was thinking, well, Nrsimhadev's form came out of that stone pillar. I wish a form would come out of my stones. So he was really strongly desiring this. Anyway, that night he took rest, and then when he woke up, he uncovered his sheelas, because he would cover them each night. And there was this beautiful, beautiful deity, about this big, perfectly, very threefold bending form. Beautiful deity, like stunningly beautiful. He had manifest. And the remnants of the shila are on his back. You can still see the remnants of that shila on his back. So he was so ecstatic and so grateful. He held a wonderful festival, and of course, Rupa, Sanatan, all of the Goswamis, Raghunath Das, Krishnadas Kaviraj, they all came, and they all had a wonderful festival to greet this deity. The deity's name is Radha Raman. So, still you can see in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada was very fond of the Goswami who ran that temple, and he very much liked their standard of worship. And he would send Yamuna there to check out the worship. So, let's see. And eventually someone came and built a temple there, the temple that's still there. And Radharaman was installed there. And, very big festival. Every Nrsimha Dasi day is a big festival, and then the next day, of course, the appearance of Radharaman was a huge festival. Huge 500 litres of milk, I think they take, and they make all sorts of sweets and have a wonderful festival on that day. So I'll just read a little about the books that he wrote. He wrote a book called Satkriya Saradipika, which is a classic on the tenets of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And then he edited Hari Bhakti Vilas. So these Goswamis are so pertinent to us. We're following particular rules of deity worship from the Hari Bhakti Vilas, and it was Gopala Bhatta Goswami and Sanatana Goswami who compiled that book. So we can't think that these Goswamis are not 500 years ago they appeared, they disappeared. They're so important these days. They're so important for so many reasons. It's important because to worship a Vaishnava, as we were talking about yesterday, to worship a Vaishnava is one of the 5 most important things we can do. And these Vaishnavas are so very dear to the Lord. And I'll just go on with the books and I'll talk a little bit more about his most glorious disciple. So then he also wrote a book called Sat Kriya Saradipika, which roughly translates as the lamp that lights the essence of spiritual rituals. And guess what that deals with? It primarily deals with family life. And here's a lifelong Swami. He also wrote one for sannyasis called Samskara Deepika for renunciates. And he did so many things. He helped the Goswamis with their books. He edited things. He wrote Darshini Tika, which is a commentary. Some of it was written by Sanatana Goswami, so he was assisting all the time. So the other instruction of Lord Chaitanya was that he would take many disciples. So we know that Sanatana and Rupa, because of their association with the Muslims, they felt like they were contaminated. They were so humble. They never went into the Lord Jagannath temple. They just remained very humble and always thinking themselves as so fallen, and they wouldn't take disciples. So, but Gopala Bhatta, being from such a respectable Brahmin family, and Raghunath Bhatta also being from a very respectable Brahmana family, they took disciples. So he had many disciples. His main disciple, of course, is Srinivas Acharya. So when we sing the 6 Goswami song, Srinivas Acharya has sung that. So he was the one, because Lord Chaitanya actually wanted him to propagate through Gopala Bhatta. The Goswami's books would be sent to Bengal, and that was Lord Chaitanya's request. So Gopala Bhatta initiated Srinivas Acharya, and Srinivas Acharya, along with Narottam Das and Chamananda Prabhu, were the ones that took these books to the West and spread this all across Bengal and Orissa. So it's such a special relationship. So I just wanted to read a little bit. This is when Srinivas got initiated. So he had an amazing history to get there. He was told right from small that he would be initiated by Gopala Bhatta Goswami. But actually he asked Narahari Sakha to initiate him. But he said, no, everybody knew. Everyone else knew. No, you're supposed to be initiated by Gopala Bhatta Goswami. And then he met Advaita Acharya. This Srinivas Acharya was wanting to go to Vrindavan, but he met so many people before he got to Vrindavan. He met Gadadhar Pandit. He met Advaita Acharya 3 years after Advaita Acharya had left his body. He was in Navadvip. He got this effulgent form coming towards him, and that was Advaita Acharya. And Advaita Acharya told him, you are meant to go to Vrindavan. You are meant to take Gopala Bhatta for your guru. So this happened again and again. He met Vishnupriya. He met Lord Nityananda's wife, Janaka Mata. She told him, go to Vrindavan. You're supposed to be initiated by Gopala Bhatta Goswami. So it was all meant to happen. So this is how it happened. So Jiva Goswami took Srinivas Acharya one day, they took garlands, etc. So, this is when they first met. Jiva Goswami took Srinivas. Come, my dear Srinivas, Gopala Bhatta Goswami said, I'm too old to come to you. I'm glad to finally meet you. Srinivas came closer and again offered his most humble obeisances to Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who patted his back. Srinivas took the dust from Gopala Bhatta Goswami's feet and placed it on his head. He said, I feel terrible pain because of the sudden disappearance of Sri Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. I have only bones remaining in my body. No one but you can save me. Please forgive me for delaying in coming to you. I wanted to study Srimad Bhagavatam with Gadadhar Pandit. I went to see him in Neelachala. However, he instructed me to go to Bengal to bring a new Srimad Bhagavatam from Narahari Thakur. He also gave me a letter for this. Unfortunately, I received the shocking news on my way that Gadadhar Pandit had departed from this world. This was too unbearable, so I went back to Navadvip to have the darshan of Vishnu Priya. She sent me to Shantipur. There I went to Karadaha and met Janava Mata before leaving Vrindavan. But all these personalities I met, Vishnu Priya, Janava Mata, and Abhiram Thakur, ordered me to leave soon for Vrindavan. I'm most unfortunate. I never saw the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu. My life is useless. And he was lamenting like this as he was holding on to Gopala Bhatta Goswami's lotus feet. Anyway, one day they went to see Gopala Bhatta, taking with him tulsi manjaris and flower gardens. After offering his obeisances to Gopala Bhatta Goswami, Srinivas humbly submitted. Sri Krishna is the spiritual master of the whole world. His teachings are incomparable and applicable to all living entities. And Sri Rupa Goswami has recorded these instructions. I wish to be initiated into these teachings. O Master, kindly become my instructor and save me. My only desire is to become your humble servant. So then they sat. Gopala Bhatta sat facing the east, and Srinivasacharya's heart was filled with great ecstasy as he grabbed hold of Gopala Bhatta Goswami's lotus feet and completely surrendered himself as his eternal servant. And Gopala Bhatta asked him to wash his hands and meditate on Sri Radha, who was standing on Krishna's left side. He ordered Srinivas to worship Sri Radha Krishna, as well as the gopis headed by Lalita, by offering them flower garlands and sandalwood pole. He informed Srinivas of the exalted positions, transcendental qualities and services of numerous gopis and manjaris, and disclosed to him that he was the maidservant of these gopis. He then made Srinivas worship Shri Radha Raman again. And then he said to him, he gave him mantras, and he said, you should chant these mantras with utmost care and attention. Your spiritual form is that of Mani Manjari, and you are under the care and guidance of Guna Manjari. So this is the link, you see? Guna Manjari is Gopala Bhatta Goswami. And so Gopala Bhatta Goswami came to Vrindavan and initiated Srinivas, who works under Guna Manjari in the spiritual world. So this linking up, this is why it's all so important. These Goswamis, what they've given us, because these eternal associates, they're our people. They're Goloka people. That's where we're headed. There's time separating us. We're not there yet. Here we are, struggling on, but we're headed there, and they are we're all linked up with them. You know, Prabhupada said a very nice thing once when someone wrote to Srila Prabhupada and said, oh, Srila Prabhupada, you've left, and this is in the early days, you have left, and I'm really feeling your separation. And Srila Prabhupada wrote to him, he said, why are you saying separation? You are chanting Hare Krishna, I am chanting Hare Krishna, we are all packed up together. So in the same way, we're all linked with these divine associates of the Lord. Because we know Gopala Bhatta Goswami, his eternal relationship, Guna Manjari, is as a maidservant of Srimati Radharani in the spiritual world. And we're all linked up. So that's why we see these days of the appearance and disappearance of the acharyas as so important. And just like we see the devotees that we meet with every day, we see them as our people. This is our family. But the devotees, the eternal Nitya Siddhas and Radha and Krishna and the Gopis and the cowherd boys, Mataji Soda, they're our eternal family as well. And they're the family that we're going to go to eternally and serve eternally. So we have to have that vision. That's spiritual vision, to see, that this life is a practice, and we're practicing, and we're developing, learning how to develop loving and respectful relationships with devotees. And the devotees that we're going to be eternally loving and respecting are those ones that come here sometimes. Just like Srila Prabhupada came from the spiritual world and we just fell in love with him. Why would we do that? It's because we have an eternal connection with all of these wonderful devotees. So we should never think that they are ordinary in any way, or minimize, these special days for glorifying them. And we can ask them for their mercy on these days, and they're especially merciful on these days. This is why they're especially merciful on these days. So, I think that was all. Something else. I just wanted to say that throughout his life, Gopala Bhatta Gosvami remained very, very humble. He was very unassuming. When Krishnadas Kaviraj went, he asked all the Goswamis for blessings. He said, "You can have my blessings on the proviso you do not mention my name." So he was very unassuming and very humble, despite the fact that he was known as such a scholar and such a devotee. He was a very beautiful, humble soul. At the same time, he was very organized, and he set up personally the worship of Shri Radharama, which is still going on. So he has all wonderful qualities. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening. Is there anything that anybody would like to add, or any stories they know? Kirtan, you've got lots of nectar.
Maybe a point of interest. Just you mentioned the Shalagram manifesting into Radha.
That's one.
Yes, in relation to Radha Raman manifesting into Shalagram, apparently there was scientific investigation into it.
And they looked at these deeds very carefully through their instruments, and there was absolutely no evidence of any carving. Because, as we know, they're self-manifested deeds. So this is a big one of strengthening our faith, but understand that they're actually self-manifested deeds.
We don't get to examine his back, but apparently there are remnants.
Yes, there's a little, the initial, the original Shalagram really expanded. He's stretched out from it.
And he has teeth. I mean, it's
Yeah,
so
there's a
amazing.
lot of, and there's no evidence absolutely couldn't be carved.
Yes. Very beautiful.
And I'd heard that sometimes the teeth manifest and sometimes they aren't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't cite.
Yeah.
I can't cite. It's just anecdotal. I heard that.
And I did read in Ambika that when Radharaman's temple was being constructed, at that time in history there were still periodic attacks by the Mohammedans in Vrindavan and all over northern East India. So the descendants, or Gopala Bhatta Goswami and his disciples, they very intelligently designed a temple for Radharaman that you may know. Looks from the street just like a house. It's actually quite large inside. Those of us who have been inside can actually, hundreds of devotees can fit in there. But from the street, it just looks like a domestic dwelling. to avoid it attracting attention, not like the palatial, gorgeous architecture of traditional Krishna temples.
Right.
And they even went to the extent of putting a crescent moon on the front entrance, so that the Mohammedans would go down the street looking for temples to desecrate, and they would say, "Oh, it must be a Mohammedan family."
And Radha Raman's the only original deity of the Goswamis still in Vrindavan, probably for that reason. The others had to be moved. And I forgot to mention, you reminded me about, he, on his journey north, at the time when he was coming back from Nepal, he was in one village and he met a devotee there who was lamenting because he couldn't have any children. And Gopala Bhatta Gosvami blessed him that yes, you will have children. And the husband was so grateful, he said to him, my first son, he'll be yours. Anyway, 10 years later, this little boy was sitting in the courtyard in Vrindavan, and Gopala Bhatta Goswami came in and said, "Oh, who are you?" And he said, "Oh, I'm from that village, and my father has sent me to serve you." And he initiated him as Gopinath, and he was like such a fantastic pujari, such a wonderful pujari. And his brother came and also got initiated, and his brother had 3 children, and the descendants of the brother are the sevaks that now serve Radharama. Jai Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Gopala